Today we're going to be talking about the Caligula effect, or simply Caligula as it is known in Japan. It's a niche JRPG franchise that started on the PlayStation Vita with a Persona-like style. They even brought in one of the scenario writers from Personas 1, 2, and 3 to work on it. That original game was eventually remade for the Switch and other platforms, something I covered on the channel a while back. And now we've got a follow-up game. Here is my review of the Caligula Effect 2 for the Nintendo Switch. When it comes to story, we've got a similar premise to the events of the original game. You go through what you think is your daily life, only to suddenly become aware that you actually exist in a virtual world called Redo. Your mind involuntarily trapped in this place by a virtual doll named Regret, who brought you there under the guise of helping you escape from your real-world trauma. Not long after, you find and bond with another virtual doll invading this world named Key, the daughter of the virtual doll from Caligula Effect 1. Going in with her plan, you reinstate the Go Home Club, gathering other aware people that want to leave, so you can take down Regret and her army of musicians that oppose you. Now, I've always enjoyed the story behind the Caligula effect because of how much psychology there is. You've got all of these different people that suffered some kind of horrible trauma in the real world that drew them to this virtual one their minds are trapped in. I've always loved the character development of these people slowly getting their real-world memories back, and you, the player, discovering what that trauma was. And I think 2 handles the character development and the story in general in a really nice way. It is true that we basically have the same premise all over again, but you get bits from the very beginning of the game coming from the musician group that something very different is going on this time around. Now, on the topic of this being a sequel, you don't really have to play the first game to understand what's going on here. A lot of the story is standalone with the new characters, though there are a lot of references and ties to the first game, just nothing you're going to have to know for the main plot. Though if you really want to see that story without playing that first RPG, you could watch the anime, which is up on YouTube with English subtitles. Granted, the ending of the anime is a little different than the ending of the game, but you'll get the main gist of things. When it comes to gameplay, this is a 3D turn-based RPG with a lot of dungeon crawling and social elements. Now, before really diving in, they added and removed a lot of things in the transition from Overdose to the sequel. A few examples being the fact that you can still choose the gender of your character, and they removed both the massive NPC recruiting where you could go to just bland characters and pull them into your party, as well as the ability to join the musicians and see an alternate story from their point of view. That latter part is a bit of a downer as it was a really interesting part of Overdose. Moving on to main progression, this game goes in chapters. Each chapter has many 3D areas for you to explore around for shops and side missions. You've also got a base of operations in the form of a train for talking with party members and doing the memory events, the Caligula franchise's variant of a social link. We'll get into that system a bit more later. As you progress the story, you'll eventually reach that chapter's main dungeon where it becomes a bit more linear. You can't do any of the side stuff or memory events until you clear the dungeon's boss and proceed to the next chapter. The dungeon crawling is similar to the previous game and the Persona 3 and 4 games, but a bit more simplified on puzzles outside of the final 2 chapters. All in all, it's pretty simple though, so let's get into the combat system, which has gotten a few improvements. Everything is turn-based, and all party members get both attack and support skills as they level up. But the coolest thing about this combat system is the timeline feature. Whenever you select a command, you get a little preview of what you and your party members are about to do. You can even go back and choose a different command if you don't like the outcome or see that your AI partners are about to target someone that you didn't select at the beginning. Auto battle also returns with some improvements. You can still toggle it to have the AI work on their own outside of the protagonist, but you can also set them to focus on attacking, defending, or doing whatever they want. We also have some new cinematic skills as well as the voltage system letting your virtual doll activate her powers, giving you guys a nice boost and increase to your hit count. As you win each battle, you gain experience and level up, but you also get points for skill mastery. With this new system, some weapons and accessories have passive buffs that you can get when you equip them, like increasing experience gain or certain statistics. Once these skills are mastered, you can equip them without the accessory being there as well. This is very similar to the ability system from Final Fantasy IX. When you finally reach the close of each chapter, new memories for party members can be done at the base when you have access to all of the different side missions. These allow you to get to know the character a little bit better and eventually diving deeper to find out what their trauma was and what they are like in the real world. There's not really any romance that goes on here, but you do get close to them. Now, as all of this comes together, we get about the same amount of content we got from Overdose even without that musician route being a thing. One trek through the game should take you about 20 to 25 hours to get from start to finish. Next up is presentation. The game's visuals look pretty good, but they're not as quote-unquote shiny with the shading as Overdose was. But they did improve the handheld blur a bit. It's still pretty substantial, but nowhere near as bad as before. Performance is better as well. It plays pretty smooth most of the time with some very occasional FPS drops during certain animations like with Marie's bombs. That's all I've got with performance, so let's dive into battery life. Caligula 2 gives the original model a battery range of 3 hours and 15 minutes up to 4 hours and 23. The Switch Lite gets a range of 3 hours and 52 up to 5 hours and 37. The Redbox V2 2019 model gets a range of 6 hours to 7 hours and 58. And the OLED model gets a range of 6 hours and 26 up to 8 hours and 27. In conclusion, the Caligula Effect 2 is a sequel that improves a good bit of its predecessor. Now on the downside, not having that alternate musician route is a bit of a downer, and you've still got some small frame drops that appear on occasion. If you're not huge on playing as the musicians though, it's a good JRPG with the Persona style. Reviews to Go rates the Caligula Effect 2 for the Nintendo Switch an 8 out of 10. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below. Thank you for watching and have a great day.